For those of you who know, we have been in a series. We're in a series about the fruits of the Spirit. Not the gifts of the Spirit. They're not to be confused with each other. Gifts of the Spirit are handed out according to need, and some people get one, and some people get another, and some people get two or three, and we don't always know the rhyme or reason why a gift is handed out. But when it comes to the fruits of the Spirit, all of us can endeavor to embody those fruits ourselves. All of us are meant to grow into a kind of faith where all those pieces leak out. We've talked about self-control. We've talked about gentleness. And if you are used to or have read Galatians chapter 5, verses 22 and 23, you will know, I even mentioned at the beginning of the series, I am working them backwards to forwards. That is to say, self-control is the last listed one, so we began with self-control. Partially because we had just ended a series with a sermon about love, and I thought love, that's what all I talk about. And there's a reason, because it is the very grounding of our faith. It's the grounding of the entire universe. It's the fabric which holds it all together. There's a reason why love matters. But what would happen if instead of starting with love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, etc., the ones that from the beginning, what would happen if we worked them backwards? First of all, maybe I would remember the last two or three better myself. But what would we find by looking at them in that reverse order and discovering that love is the crown of them all? Not only is it the foundation of them all, but it's also the crown of them all. So we're ending with love. But we're not at love yet. This week we're at faithfulness. As I say, we began with self-control. We moved to gentleness. And now we're in the week of faithfulness. So what does faithfulness look like? Well, I thought it would be good if I popped up a little bit to a rarely read book, perhaps even more rarely than Song of Songs, because it's a heavy book. It comes right after Jeremiah in Western Christian Bibles, and that is the book of Lamentations. And this is a reminder. Lamentations, it's a book of sadness about how everything has come apart, and it's a very honest book. If someone tells you that there's no room for sadness or struggle in your faith life, they have lied to you. It's not founded in the Scripture. It's not founded there. But if you come with me to Lamentations chapter 3, verses 22 and 23. Now, this is in reference to God. But we are meant to body out into the world these same kinds of principles. The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. God's mercies never come to an end. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness, O Lord. This is a reading for this morning. Thanks be to God. The one thing I feel comfortable speaking about when it comes to God in the aftermath of love and the love of God for all that is the absolute faithfulness. The absolute faithfulness of a God who never gives up on us. As often as we give up on one another and we give up on God, God never gives up on us. The whole story is about the pursuit of us. This whole book, plus a few more, all about God's pursuit of us. The faithful, never surrender, never giving up kind of chase after us. God is faithful. Now, one of the interesting things about what I think faithfulness is, there are a lot of possible definitions. I could pull them out, but for me, the way it came to really have meaning this week for me, as I sat with it, is what's interesting is in the West, particularly Western Protestant Christians, tend to push back really heavily on works, on what we do with our hands and feet. That's not nearly as important as faith. But what's interesting about faithfulness is, for me, that it's an embodiment, an active reality of the faith that tells us who we are. Faith can sound like a concept, and for many people it's become just a way of listing all the things that we are meant to believe. Faith I used to think of as a code word, really, for relationship. That's a way I think of it. But faithfulness, when we go to the noun, faithfulness is the way we embody our faith in everyday life. And it really tells a lot about who we are. You know, in the book of Hebrews, and I had marked this because I found this very interesting, in the book of Hebrews, in chapter 5, for some reason I marked chapter 2 here. I have no idea why I'm there. No, chapter 11, not chapter 5. The meaning of faith is listed here, and then the people who embodied faith are also listed here, people who lived out their faith. And they talk about people like Abel, of Cain and Abel, Enoch, Noah, Abraham, Moses, people who not only had faith somewhere hidden inside of them, but lived it out in the arena that Brené Brown talks about, in the arena of life. It doesn't matter, well, maybe it matters a little. It doesn't matter so much about the faith you have hidden at home somewhere or in your closet somewhere, but how do you live that out? When you hear someone make a racist comment about someone else, what do you do about that? How do you respond to that? How do you stand up about that? Someone that's close to you, or someone that's a stranger in a strange place. How do you embody your faith when you see someone in need? How do you embody your faith when someone you love is struggling? How do you embody that? Because that's faithfulness. That's showing up in the arena on the day, and no matter what comes, courageously standing up because you believe that matters. That's what faithfulness is. It's the look of showing up. It's the look of engaging life, because what you hold to be true inside of you, the relationship out of which all of us are born, the relationship of our connection to the eternal, to the divine, demands of us, maybe more like asks of us, because we get to choose how we respond, but asks of us that when we show up in those places where people behave in a way that is other than loving, that is other than godly, that we find a way to respond that is faithful to us without judging the other. Now that's the really hard part of it. If we're just being really honest, I'm really good at the judgy part. If you want to know who you know that's really good at the judgy part, I can just be judgy with the best of them. It's above my pay grade. I realize judgment is above my pay grade, but it doesn't matter whether it's above my pay grade or not. I've got a list, and sometimes I bring that list up. Sometimes I'll be having a conversation with my family at home, and I'll bring up these people who are like bulls in China shop, or who don't seem to care about one another, or never seem to have your back, and I bring them up, and I make my judgment about them. It's really safe in that space to be judgy without embodying my faith, without embodying what I believe to be true, which is God loves those people too. How can I embody my faith in such a way without being judgy of the other, well, it's hard work. But I have really come to believe, and maybe it's the couple of years that I spent working in the Living School, but one of the tenets of the Center for Action and Contemplation is that the best, Richard says it so much better, I don't remember exactly what the words are, but the best indictment of what is wrong in the world is the practice of the better. Practicing the better. It's really easy to be one of the judgy people. I showed Linda a video yesterday. You know, sometimes you get lost in videos, and it's sometimes not a good thing. But I was on YouTube. You can just be sucked in and never come out. And I was watching the 10 most amazing auditions for America's Got Talent or Britain's Got Talent, someone, it no longer matters. And there was this young woman, originally from Wisconsin. I remember her story because she told it, that she wanted to put her music out on YouTube. So she had started. And as soon as you start doing that, trolls show up. And I'm not talking about the kind that lives under a bridge and demands a password. People who have ugly things to say. And so what she did, which was so powerful and what made it so memorable, maybe was the most memorable auditions, is that she took all the remarks of the trolls and she turned them into this beautiful song. She sang a song about all the ugly things, like, my mom's in the other room and she thinks there's a cat dying in my room, only she sang it much more beautiful than I did. I was more of a chant, what I just did. And, you can't sing, don't take this as hate, but you can't sing, or, those. And she turned it into a song. She turned it around. She let her voice be an expression of something other than the ugliness that came at her. Everyone is really good, especially behind the wall of social media and in anonymity, of just saying hateful things you would never say to somebody else's face. Well, some people would, but for the most part wouldn't. They say them because they're behind a screen somewhere. And it seems okay to them to be ugly. Well, the only thing you and I've got in response to that is not ugliness back. If we're going to be faithful, it's practicing something better. So we have to find creative ways, like this young woman did, to go on America's Got Talent and sing this song where she makes fun of all of the things that people said about how bad her singing was. And she did it with her beautiful voice that was anything but bad. Can we find ways when people put us down not to respond in the same way? Can we find ways to embody our faithfulness? And it would take great creativity, patience, and love. Remaining faithful is not easy. Faithfulness is one of the hard ones. 2 weeks ago, I was telling you how hard self-control was. Last week, I told you how hard gentleness is. Now this week, I'm telling you, you're like, well, why develop the fruits of the Spirit? James, give me a reason. The reason is because the fruits of the Spirit are the embodiment of the kingdom of God. And they're what we're called to embody. At no time should we have ever been told, if you've ever been told by someone that faith was an easy walk, an easy path, I don't want to call them a liar, but that statement is itself a lie. I don't know about the person who said it. I may have even been one of the people that said it. It is not. Embodying our faith in everyday life is hard work, because no matter what anyone else tells you, our culture has wholly different values. Some of the biggest trolls are the most popular. The people who say the ugliest things about people that are different than they are, than we are the most popular people. So The value of our culture clearly says being ugly, that's the way to notoriety. That's the way to be well known. That's the way to success. It is not the way to the heart of God, though. It is completely the opposite. Faithfulness demands that I look at myself honestly, realize that I'm just as judgy as everybody else. But don't stop there. Don't let that be an excuse. I'm just as judgy as everybody else, so I might as well just be judgy. Nope. What faithfulness asks of me is to be honest. I got the judgy thing going on, but when I enter the arena of life every single day, I'm not going to put that face forward. I'm not going to be false, but I'm going to be faithful. You know, I regularly say to you all, it's a part of, I know, it's my echo. You hear it. Probably it echoes in this building long after I'm gone, if the building's still here. You are infinitely precious and unconditionally loved for the gift you already are. And that is, from my perspective, the absolute truth, the core of the gospel. You are precious beyond any measure. You are loved without condition. Not if you show up in the building, not if you show up on our stream, not if you, even if you're unfaithful, if you don't embody faithfulness, you're still loved. There's no condition on the love, no condition at all. And it's not about you becoming different than you are, because you're already loved and precious for the gift you already are. Already are. Now, if you live that giftedness in every encounter, if you engage the world with that kind of mindset, then you begin to embody faithfulness. But I did say it's hard. So start small. Here we go. Got some practices. Start small. When you tell somebody you'll do something, do it. If you're uncertain if you'll be able to do it, and this is my great failing. Someone says, will you do this? And I say, yes. And then I look and I realize I can't do that. My yes was not true. So I have to be very careful promising to do something. True faithfulness says, I'll do it. I'll give it my best. I'll try. I cannot promise I will do this, but I'll give it a try. Faithfulness is in the little things. It's in the little tiny things in our lives. Set up some small goals in your life and see if you can remain faithful to them. Tomorrow morning when I get up, don't put it off that long. This afternoon when I get home, no, don't put it off that long. When I get in my car after worship, I'm going to take just a moment to be thankful. Before I drive away, after I've had my last farewell to whoever I saw in the building or wherever you were when you watched, I'm going to stop for just a moment, and I'm going to be thankful. And every time I hear a bell ring, I'm going to be thankful. Or, you name it. I don't know what the reminders that happen in your life. Every time I get on the bus, I'm going to be thankful. Every time I get off the bus, I'm going to be thankful. Every time I get in my car, I'm going to be thankful. Every time I get out of my car, I'm going to be thankful. And thankfulness is just one possible practice. But you can see that if you begin to build a habit of being faithful to something, I'm going to read one Bible verse every day. And in order to help me do that, I'm going to do it first thing when I get up in the morning. And I'm going to sit with that throughout the day. Well, some days you're not going to do it. Let's just be honest. And you're going to forgive yourself because being gentle with yourself, we learned this last week, very important. Your self-talk, need to do that. Be gentle, but try again. Once you've discovered you missed, instead of beating yourself up, if at first you don't succeed, try again. That's the practice. We're all going to fail. If you haven't failed yet in your life, you haven't lived. We've all failed in some way. Heck, I fail every week at something. Guess what? I still get up here and talk to you. Even when sometimes my greatest failure happens when I'm talking to you because I wasn't as clear as I intended or some other kind of thing. But it sure doesn't seem to stop me. For over 32 years at St. James, most Sundays, many of the Sundays, I get up here and say something, failure or not. And that has been my form of faithfulness, one of the several in my life. What ways do you want to be faithful in your life to embody what you believe? If you believe the most important thing is love, how am I going to embody that? How am I going to live that out today? Make a plan. And do it in little ways to start off with. Even when the dog irritates me because I just put her out and she barks, I'm going to go and open the door and let her in anyway. This is one of the ones I'm working on being faithful about, because my dog only wants to go out when I'm in the middle of my meditation in the morning. And then she wants to come back in as soon as I restart the meditation. That is her plan. I'm sure it's not intentional, but it sure feels like it when that is what happens. Linda will put her out before she goes. She'll be outside for 20 minutes and I'll think, okay, it's safe for me to do my morning meditation. I will sit in my chair. What's the first thing I hear? Okay. And now she's deaf, so I can't just call her back into the house. I have to find her wherever she is in the yard, if it's raining or whatever, and I have to walk up to her and gently touch her, because otherwise she won't know that I've opened the door. She can be sitting next to the door and won't know that the door opened. So I have to be patient with her and embodying faithfulness. Now, you might say, well, James, it's clearly if you wait 20 minutes to do it. If I sat down immediately, she barks. If I sit down in 20 minutes, she barks. She could sit outside for an hour because it's a beautiful day and be enjoying herself in the sun. I will sit down and she wants to come in. What is the faithful thing to do if I'm going to embody love? Do I let her bark for the 20 minutes that I'm sitting there? Do I let it go? I don't know. I'm not saying there's a right and a wrong to some of these things. But you know what love looks like to you, or what thankfulness or gratitude looks like to you, or patience looks like to you. How are you going to embody that? Because that's what faithfulness is. A second practice, find someone to hold you accountable in your life, someone to partner with. Someone you say to, because this is actually the foundation of United Methodism, was accountable discipleship. What we do today as Methodists was founded in the ideas of John Wesley and Charles Wesley, and they believed in being accountable to each other because they knew if no one held them accountable, they would drop the ball. Find someone who loves you, not someone who's going to be judgy about holding you accountable. None of us need that, right? Come on, be honest. Don't pick somebody who's going to say, hey, did you do that prayer thing? I knew it. I knew you wouldn't. I knew you wouldn't. You're just kind of a failure. And I knew that you wouldn't, but it was nice that you planned on it. I'll call you again tomorrow. Bye. You don't need that. I don't need that. If you have someone like that, choose someone else. Someone who will say, so I know that you set for yourself this goal. You want to pray every morning for 5 minutes. How did that go? Well, you didn't do it? That's all right. Try again tomorrow. Or try this afternoon. But you know that call is coming, so embodying faithfulness becomes something you anticipate someone is going to keep up with you about. You know God's keeping up with you about it, but God doesn't call in and say, hey, dude, how's that prayer thing going? Because God already knows. And even if God called you in, it's like, it's okay. I love you. Don't worry. Find someone to hold you accountable. Find a practice that has meaning for you, that embodies your faithfulness. Because here's what I saw on the list. And if you want to, I encourage you. It's a long chapter, so I chose not to read the whole thing to you, or any of it actually, in chapter 11 of the book of Hebrews. Take it and read it. All of the people who did what they were supposed to do it was accorded to them as faith. They embodied their faith in the way they lived. Read about them. And if one of them rings true with you, then go part the Red Sea or write the Ten Commandments, whatever it is that you feel will embody your faithfulness. In all seriousness, faithfulness will look different in your life than it does in mine. It doesn't make it a better fruit in mine or a better fruit in yours. How will you embody your faith? How will you hold yourself accountable or have someone else do that? Are there small steps you can take that will help grow the strength of your faithfulness? Prayer, reading sacred texts, whatever it may be. These are ways to begin to let the fruit of the Spirit, faithfulness, arise in you.